on BCIT Magazine. Occupy Vancouver protesters pack up their camp. Highlights of Occupy Vancouver's contributions to the homeless. And a memorial to a local musician. You're joining us live from BCIT's Great Hall. Hello and welcome to BCIT Magazine's online edition. I'm Colin Hope. Earlier this week, protesters with Occupy Vancouver were facing eviction from their camp at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Being ordered to leave wasn't enough to stop their protest, however. They picked up their tents and moved to another location. Kaylee Ramsey has the details.
Occupiers began marching through the streets of downtown. However, even with the 2 o'clock deadline looming, one protester says the decision to pack up and leave isn't easy.
Well, my house is right behind you there, and I was standing by my tent there, and the police came by like half an hour ago, and they told me if I was going to stand there after 2 o'clock, I'd be arrested. I don't want to go to jail, and at the same time, I don't want to move.
Other demonstrators feel the decision to leave was easier as they weren't given a choice.
A lot of people are packing up today because they're worried about being arrested, which will negatively affect the movement, negatively affect their individual lives.
To ensure the safety of protesters, representatives from the BC Civil Liberties Association are on site to ensure the teardown and move remains peaceful.
Well, we've always been hoping that things would be very peaceful, and certainly disappointed that the court didn't consider the constitutional arguments around the rights of homeless people, where these homeless people are going to end up once this thing's disassembled. And our job is just to watch the security officials, watch the city officials, and make sure people's rights are respected.
Protesters have reached the final destination right here at the law courts that ordered the injunction to remove them from the Vancouver Art Gallery in the first place. Protesters say they like the new destination, some heading back to the Vancouver Art Gallery to grab their tents to stay the night. Kaylee Ramsey in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Meanwhile, those involved in the Occupy protest gathered to shed light on positive social services provided by the movement. Gurv Bod has this report.
Changing locations wasn't the only inconvenience Occupy Vancouver protesters felt this week.
The injunction that goes into effect at 2 p.m. today means that Occupy Vancouver can no longer provide any of the services that we have been providing. We challenge the federal, the provincial, and the municipal government to replace our efforts.
According to Eric Hamilton-Smith, spokesperson for Occupy Vancouver, the eviction from the art gallery will impact a large group of people that relied on services provided by the movement.
Occupy Vancouver served an average of 1,000 meals per day. It provided 30,000 meals over the last month with an estimated value of $45,000 to the community. If you compare those costs, the value of those services to soup kitchens in the downtown east side. The medical tent cared for around 100 patients per day, most of whom were not occupiers.
Occupy organizers aren't sure how they will reestablish the services, but they vow to continue the efforts of bringing awareness in the next stage of the occupation.
Future occupations may take many different forms, some community-based, others more disruptive, so to speak. For example, occupation of parks or other such public space, occupation of buildings, flash occupations of SkyTrains, like you saw last night, shopping malls, coffee shops, et cetera, et cetera. We will ensure that we will be heard as we move forward.
As occupiers pack their belongings, it will take some time to determine the true social impact of the occupation of the art gallery. Gurv Bod in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson says his party will fight for temporary homeless shelters this winter. The province cut funding for the shelters last month, saying they're unnecessary due to social housing already opened this year. But Vision Vancouver councillor Jeff Meggs says people living on the streets could die without proper accommodation. And the Vancouver music community was shocked this weekend to learn one of their own had passed away. Mitch Pollock has more on this tragic story.
The downtown east side was the setting for another tragedy this weekend when police discovered the body of well-known Vancouver musician Randy Ponzio.
It was last Tuesday night when Randy told his friends he was going for a walk, but they never saw him again. Posters like these were put up all over downtown, but 4 days later, Randy was found dead at the Balmoral Hotel.
Police are unsure of the cause of death, but they do suspect foul play. His tragic passing, however, was met with an outpouring of love from hundreds of his friends and family Monday night, all gathering at one of his favorite busking spots on Granville Street.
The group here has been singing, dancing, laughing, crying. There's been spoken word, there's been freestyling, and even in this miserable weather, it's been a great night of celebration.
The sheer size of the crowd gathered in the rain spoke to the effect his music and personality had on those around him.
Positive. Amazing. He gets everyone involved. Just the whole crowd. If you go to those open mics or whatever, he's the highlight of the night for sure. He runs the whole show. Everyone's involved. Keeps everyone positive. There's nothing negative about it. It's just positivity and love.
He's electrifying. He literally grabs you. I've seen him stop people in their tracks, and a crowd attracts a crowd. And in one song, he could draw 150 people, just froze them.
Many in the crowd lit candles and incense in his memory, and a website has been set up for donating to his children, a chance to give back for a man who gave so much.
What are you going to remember about your friend?
Everything.
Mitch Pollock in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Coming up after the break, the city prepares to cash in on Grey Cup weekend. And an innovative building at UBC brings sustainability to a whole new level.
Eat the rich! Hungry! Eat the rich! Hungry! Eat the
Let's slow the money down! Let's slow the money down! And get a piece of it for ourselves! Get a piece of it for ourselves!
Economies, corporations, markets, and currency. These are not forces of nature. We invented them.
We will take our money out of the bank, close our accounts, and move our money into credit unions.
Take it easy. Take it easy. But take it.
These tents need to go now.
We lost him.
Welcome back to BCIT Magazine. I'm joined by Mark Staling. He's our BCIT sports commentator. Now it's going to be a reunion of sorts on Sunday at the Grey Cup with Winnipeg's quarterback Buck Pierce facing off against the team which cut him loose just 2 seasons ago. How's Uncle Buck done against since being cast off?
Well, it's been a good year, not a great year for Buck Pierce, Colin. His biggest issue, as Lions fans know all too well, is the injury bug. He stayed healthy this year, luckily. Wally Bono even admitted that's why Buck was cast off in favor of Travis Lulay a few years ago. Should be noted, though, that the Bombers were 2-0 against the Lions this year, but those games were before the Lions caught fire.
Now the Lions season has been far from a masterpiece. They started off at a pretty slow 1-6, but have now become the hottest team in the CFL. They've actually outscored their opponents 83-24 in their last 2 games. What was it that got their season turned around?
Well, Colin, I don't know what it is about redheads in this city, athlete redheads in this city, but we've got a lot of good ones. Travis Lulay has proven to be an absolute superstar this year. The guy's been a stud. He finished the season he actually led the league in touchdown passes, and he's a finalist. He's a shoo-in for the most outstanding player. That'll be awarded later in the week. Though, give credit to Wally Bono. When this team was struggling early in the year, he signed Arlan Bruce and Tad Cornegay, who have brought a ton of veteran presence to this Leos lineup.
And with the Grey Cup being played here in Vancouver, it's got to be a huge advantage for the Lions. What do you see as their keys to a victory?
Well, if the Lions play the way they've been playing the last several weeks, they should do quite well. The big hurdle, though, is to overcome the Blue Bombers' defense, the league-leading defense, led by Odell Willis. He had 13 sacks this year, so that's obviously a huge hurdle that they need to get overcome. But you know what? If the Lions can get an early lead on Sunday, they're going to get that crowd behind them, and it could be a long, hard day for the Blue Bombers.
Well, the BC Lions, thanks, Mark. Well, the BC Lions are looking to become the first team to earn a Grey Cup victory on home turf in 18 years. But as I found out, the Lions aren't the only ones looking to cash in.
The
The drinks will be flowing this week at bars around Vancouver as the 99th Grey Cup is in town. It's a boom time for local bars who will be preparing for a big party.
We start stocking up around a couple weeks before. We know that it's coming up, so it's kind of an advantage for us, and so we'll definitely order way more beer. We went last Sunday with the Western Final. We went through so much beer we couldn't even believe it. Typically wouldn't be completely full on a Sunday at any time, and we will probably have a lineup at the door for around 11 o'clock.
Meanwhile, jersey and memorabilia stores around Vancouver are struggling to find room for BC Lions gear and all things Grey Cup. The question is, will we see a repeat of the Stanley Cup riots? It was the last major sporting championship in the city, but Tourism Vancouver's Dave Gaisley expects a different atmosphere for the CFL's biggest event.
It's all ages, it's families, it's older couples, it's a real mix. So maybe a little different than what we saw with the emotions of the Stanley Cup being a little different. This is a little more low-key and a little more broad audience. And I think it is a great chance for the city to celebrate a real, true Canadian event.
Now, the 4-day Grey Cup Festival begins this Thursday with parties around Vancouver. 300,000 people are expected for the game on Sunday. Many will be watching on screens, such as this one here at BC Place. Now, officials are expecting $100 million to be pumped into local economies and restaurants and businesses surrounding BC Place. I'm Colin Hope in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine. And the top prize in Canadian college football is on the line this Friday at BC Place with the Vanier Cup Finals. Laval and McMaster will square off to start the week-long Grey Cup celebrations. Laval is currently tied with Western for the most wins in Vanier Cup history with 6. This will be the first time the game has ever been played west of the Rockies. And a new building is opened on campus at the University of British Columbia this month. Not only is it being hailed a technological and architectural masterpiece, it's also an environmental breakthrough. Michael Popov has the story.
This building may not look much different than most from the outside, but according to the University of British Columbia, the Center for Interactive Research on Sustainability may be the greenest building in North America, possibly the greenest on the planet.
So we're claiming that CERS will become the greenest building in North America. To give you an example, we're going to be harvesting rainwater and utilize that as our main source of potable water, or treat it on site and distribute that as as potable water in the building. We're also going to be treating and recycling all the wastewater, all the liquid waste generated in this building, so that we can use that reclaimed water to flush toilets and urinals and for irrigation. A little bit with purifying the water, it goes through a UV ultraviolet disinfection.
The CERS building is constructed mainly with timber killed by the mountain pine beetle. In fact, there's more carbon trapped in the wood than there was carbon dioxide emitted throughout the entire construction process. And the roof is designed to be its very own self-sustaining ecosystem. The vegetation provides a meadow-like environment complete with indigenous plants for birds and insects. The CERS building here at the University of British Columbia is a state-of-the-art living laboratory. It creates its own energy, it treats its own sewage, and it even converts rainwater from the outside into drinking water on the inside. But if you want this technology at home, you're going to have to be patient, and it will cost you.
I don't have the specific numbers. It does add cost. Some consumers choose not to go that route because of cost. However, if it's a home you're going to live in long term, you will recover that cost in maybe 5 years. Talking to clients, we do point out that it's really a high performance type of home that you're going to be getting rather than an eco-friendly house.
The goal of the CERS building is not only to preserve the environment, but to improve it. To reach this goal, it doesn't have to be the greenest building on Earth, just one of many. Michael Popov in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
If you have any questions or comments regarding this program, please visit us online at bcitbroadcastnews.ca or bcit-broadcast.com. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'm Colin Hope. We leave you live from BCIT's Great Hall. Thanks for watching the online edition of BCIT Magazine.